Hi, hang on, my camera went out. Hi, everyone. How are you? Welcome to our first webinar of the fall. I guess it's still summer officially. It feels kind of fallish here today since it was under 90 degrees. Um, Welcome. We have with us today, Allie is running technology as always, and we appreciate her diligence in making sure everything's going great. And we have Jones Advocacy Group with us today. Sharon and Connor, for those of you that have been around the Capitol with us over the years or been at any of our events, should have more interacted with Sharon and Connor. And we had people specifically asking us, how do we interact with our legislators once they go back to their home district? So, as Missourians to abolish the death penalty, we decided to work with our lobbyist group, Jones Advocacy Group, and put together a webinar so you all are aware of the ways to interact with your legislator back home, any questions you may have about that, and keeping on point with strategy. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Heidi Moore. I'm the Executive Director of Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty. We welcome all of you here today. And if any of you are have to sign out early, we are recording this and it will be available on our YouTube channel and probably Facebook as well. So with that, there is a place to type questions and we will get started. I will turn it over to Sharon and Connor.
Everybody, thank you for being here. My name is Sharon Galway Jones. I am the owner of Jones Advocacy Group and have been lobbying with Missourians to abolish the death penalty for a few years now. We are very excited to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit more about taking your advocacy to the next level. Connor, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Connor Lubert. I have been working for Sharon since 2021. This is an issue that personally I care deeply about, given my faith. And I am really happy to have everybody here so we can kind of talk about some strategies. So, thank you.
Great. So, if I am technologically competent, ta-da! So, we are doing tonight's presentation with the expectation that you've attended some kind of lobby day in the past. If you haven't, that's okay. It's not a prerequisite, but we're not going to be talking about the basics of something like a lobby day or even doing one-on-one advocacy in the Capitol building as much as we're going to be talking about relationship building and how to go one step beyond just sending an email or having a single conversation. Okay. So your goal as an advocate is to push through the static. Legislators get contacted by hundreds, if not thousands, of their constituents on a regular basis. They see emails from all over the place that are form emails or petitions with 1,000 signatures on them. Those have their place and those are advocacy tools. But to really take your advocacy to the next level, you have to push through all of that and get to a place where you've got a one-on-one relationship with your legislator. So this is kind of what you can think of as the different levels of contact that people have. There's the basic constituency level. That's the folks that contact their legislator maybe once every 10 years or something, when something really big happens, or if they have an issue. And Connor, I mean, we actually hear from legislators about those folks on a regular basis as well. And um, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that, but it's very clear to me that that kind of contact, unless they're making a specific ask related to the constituent, is sort of the background noise of the legislature.
Yeah, I fully agree. And that's what we're really trying to fix today. And I wouldn't say fix, but really just trying to emphasize that you need to be able to stand out from that noise. So sorry, I don't really have much more to add on that one.
Oh, that's fine. The next level would be the activist level. Most of the folks on this call probably fall into that category. This is someone who contacts their legislator during the legislative session once or twice a year. They come down for lobby days. They're informed. Maybe they do social media posts. Maybe they knock doors even as part of the campaign, but they don't have a personal relationship with that legislator necessarily. They are someone who the legislator listens to and are generally considered to be an influence on how that legislator will vote, but there's not that personal relationship there. Anything to add, Connor? Just
I would just add that there is also an issue with going into the Capitol as because Sharon and I usually use this term between an advocate and an activist, where an advocate will go in knowing basically exactly what they want to say, how to get the message across, and they can do so in a one-on-one conversation. The problem is if you go in as an activist instead of actually trying to influence change and knowing how to guide it properly, instead you'll just end up, I hate to say it, but just kind of shouting, and that's not, most legislators do not respond kindly to that. The last thing anybody wants to do is get shouted at by somebody who they don't know. So just kind of keep in mind that you can be an advocate and an activist, but if you're just going to be an activist, then you're not going to get very far with a legislator.
the next level is a key contact. This is someone who knows the legislator personally. They've got a personal relationship with them. They talk about more than just legislative issues. They talk about, professional issues or social issues, or, they share a hobby or a membership group in common. These are folks that are basically the legislators' friends and community. These folks, when they make an ask of the legislator listens to them and will feel some kind of way, as the kids say, about disappointing them with their vote.
In many cases, your key contact, as Sharon was saying, it'll be friends, it'll be family members, members of your congregation, just or local individuals that they just know really well. Um, I don't want to get into too personal details, but I mean, I know several legislators who, like they know they have to take a vote based on whether it's party affiliation or they're being told to vote a certain way. They know this will upset that person, and they will personally seek them out to apologize to them or at least try to explain it. But it shows that this key contact person is someone that means a great deal to the legislator, and that is why they have such an undue influence or just a great influence. Sorry, undue may not be the right term for that.
And then there's the professional lobbyist. And I would also add, the political class into this category, political party, leadership, that sort of thing. We're the folks who maybe all we talk about is legislative issues, but we are in that legislator's face on an almost daily basis talking about them. So our ability to sway their vote, to track their vote, to get them to pay attention is a lot higher than particularly someone who's just a regular constituent, but even maybe then someone who's their friend, because we're there with them during the legislative session, day in and day out. So we've got this more direct contact when it comes to legislative issues.
And that's one of the benefits of having a lobbyist is that and because a lobbyist then becomes kind of a trusted source where it's not so much, they're while there could be personal feelings there, they also know, like for another example with Sharon is that, they also know it's like, hey, I need to talk about attorney things, but I've never been in, a lot of these legislators, we have a citizen electorate, they don't understand that. And so they know Sharon's a trusted source on that. Because Sharon's a trusted source on that, they can say like, oh, she hasn't led me astray here, then I can trust her on this issue as well by showing that we are well versed in the knowledge and of the issue at hand.
Yeah. And they will come to us to talk to us about things that are outside of our client's interest on a regular basis because we've built that relationship where they know they can trust us to tell them the truth about what is going on legislatively. So our goal is to get you from being a basic constituent or a activist advocate to a key contact so that you are someone who has a personal relationship with legislators and can talk to them about stuff. And, shout out to my friend Wemmy, who always lets me use his picture in these presentations. Um, so how do we do that, right? When we talk about what it takes to be an activist and advocate versus a key contact, we're talking about community leaders, organizational leaders, topic experts, etc., that really have that during session occasional contact to people who have a more personal connection, friends and family, acquaintances, colleagues, local business leaders, local elected officials. Notice in neither of these categories do we say that you have to reside in that legislator's district. This is more about having a personal connection and less about who you are eligible to vote for.
I
And these
know.
are not exclusive categories, by the way. These are just things to think about, like how you start categorizing yourself and how you move from one category to the other.
Yeah.
Sorry, Connor, I interrupted you.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, I didn't really have any, or I was gonna kind of add on that, but you got it. So
Yeah. So, there are two things you've got to do, right? You've got to have that personal relationship and connection, and you've got to be good at communicating what's important to you. So let's talk a little bit about messaging. I came up with this acronym. Connor hates it, but I love it. Um, so Tang, as in the drink of the astronauts. Um, You want to make sure that your message is timely. Are you contacting them at the right time for the thing that you're trying to accomplish? When we're talking about in district legislator meetings, that means not during legislative session and not in the last month of a campaign generally. So you want to meet with them between the middle of May and the or the beginning of October during an election year, and the middle of May to the beginning of December in a non-election year. Make sure that you're timing the request to have these in-person in-district meetings in the right time when it's going to be more possible that the legislators got the bandwidth to meet with you and isn't trying to squeeze you in between 20 other things happening. Are you providing accurate information? Even if you are just going in to have a get to know you meeting, make sure that you know the facts and the data and the background of your issue before you go in. So in this case, knowing whether or not the legislator has voted with us in the last couple of years, knowing what the status of the judicial loophole bill was last year, that kind of thing. Get the information that you need before you go into the meeting. The key way to do that is to let Heidi, myself, or Connor know that you've got a meeting scheduled or that you're going to an event where you're likely to see a legislator so we can get you up to speed with what you need to know.
Mhm.
Narrative. Are you telling a story? Making sure that you've got a reason for your advocacy. So, Connor said that this is important to him because of his religious feeling and faith. This is important to me because to me it's an issue of justice and constitutional authority. Whatever your reason is it because you've had a family member who was the victim of a homicide or was convicted of one and executed or whatever? Know your story and make that connection so that there is more than just a, hey, we're both in Kiwanis together. Can you vote to abolish the death penalty? You've got to make a connective tissue there that is more than that. If you really want to get legislators to move to our side of the vote. And then finally, are you asking for the right action? Are you in a grounded place where you're not, you know, we're not asking someone who's always been a staunch believer in the death penalty to go to full abolition? Are we asking them to move in the right direction? Is it, hey, as a legislator, you've got the right to go to any prison you want to at any time without notice. Can you please just go visit Potosi and see what it's like there, or whatever the ask is? Let's move the ask in the direction we need it to go. It doesn't always have to be a full blown, we need you to vote yes on abolition tomorrow kind of ask. Let's make sure we're asking for the right action again at the right time. Other than the fact that you hate the acronym TANG, Connor, anything?
Now, genuinely, this is all good information. These are things are this is how we effectively communicate. Just as to clarify, this is not something that we are just saying to, people who aren't in the lobbying corps. This is things that the lobbying corps does. This is direct. This is straight from us. These are tried and true effective ways to advocate. So yeah, I don't really have much to add on that.
So methods of impact. We're going to ignore everything except the in-person in district. That's what we're focused on tonight. How do you ask for it, you say? That's simple but not easy, right? So the first thing is we are in the middle of developing a target list of legislators that we believe need to be contacted by uh, folks in the death penalty advocacy space. The reason that we don't have one ready to go right now is because we're in the middle of election season. But Connor and I have pulled down all the people that won primaries, and we are narrowing that list down to a targeted number. Once we get that list ready, we will send it out to the folks that have participated in this webinar, our board members, and anyone else that Heidi wants to say who wants to volunteer to do this. That list will also have their in-district contact information and as much biography about them as we can. So what their profession is, what their religious affiliation is, are they the member of Rotary? Are they do they like to golf? Whatever it is, we'll get as much information as we can. Once you know who you feel comfortable meeting with, who is, in your region, again, you don't have to be their constituent. Go ahead and reach out to them and say, hey, I wanted to congratulate you on winning your primary, because even if they had no competition, they've just won their primary, and wanted to sit down and talk with you for just a minute about the death penalty and kind of let you know where I'm at. Or better even, hey, I wanted to congratulate you on winning your primary. I noticed you're a member of First United Methodist Church in Clarksville. I'm the member of the United Methodist Church as well in your area, and wanted to chat with you and get to know you, meet you. Do you have 5 minutes for coffee? Most of the time, even if you are not in their district, if you are in their area and can make some kind of connection, they will meet with you. Frankly, even if not, if they've got the time, they will meet with you, because a legislator is usually motivated to build out their constituency as much as they can. They aren't just looking at who can vote for me. They're looking at how can I network across my region? Who is in leadership in different organizations that I might want to talk to? Who is making actual contact with me outside of the legislative session and not just calling my legislative number? So they're more than likely going to say yes to setting up that meeting while they have the time in district.
I do want to piggyback on that just for a quick second. You would be for for those of you who haven't really done this before, you would be amazed how easy it is to contact a legislator. And I don't mean just by like calling their office at in the House and the Senate, especially if especially for House members, most of them just have their personal cell phones as their contact through either the MEC website or just on their campaign website. And they will answer the phone and they'll just be like, yeah, and the willingness, but I really wanted to just emphasize their willingness to have these conversations. It was to, it was honestly, it was one of the biggest shocks to me when I first started doing this job. I assumed, oh, like you'd have to go through three channels just to set up this coffee meeting. In most cases, they're like, no, when do you want to meet? It's, and, their willingness to listen and to have the conversation to, it still kind of shocks me to this day, but it's something I really appreciate. So I just wanted to piggyback off that.
Yeah. And a lot of legislators even have a sort of office hours kind of schedule where they're like, oh, yeah, I'm down at, the Burger King every Wednesday. I go and get coffee with a bunch of folks and sit around for a while and talk. Come on by anytime. It can be very, very casual. The other option that you have is to go to an event, a town hall, the county fair, whatever it is, Veterans Day event, whatever, where you know the legislator is going to be, and introduce yourself there to make the connection. That's another really good way to do it. You're doing it in a crowd, they can't ignore your phone call, you know. But that's also a space where they are open to making new connections and are happy to get to know you as well.
Sharon, on that note, just because of the topic, um, Bob asked if, hang on, let me scroll back up because it's on. What about regularly join a legislator's weekly meetings when they're in town?
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's what I mean by a lot of legislators will have that sort of weekly town hall coffee office hours style meeting. Go to those, get to know them there. I actually just last yesterday afternoon I ended up at a community meeting and met a candidate there who I have a connection with from back during my college days, and I hadn't put two and two together until we were in the same room and she said her name and her locality and profession and everything. I went, oh, you're that person. And so that can sometimes be another good way to do it where you're like, oh, now that we see each other, we realize actually we have this friend in common, or actually we both, you know, use the same chiropractor and see each other in the waiting room every 2 weeks. Whatever it is, that's a good way to do it is to go to those weekly or however often they have meetings. Even a campaign event, if you're willing to go to that, we don't do with MADP, we don't do anything on the campaign side at all. But if that's your opportunity to meet them, take advantage of it. So once you've got the meeting on schedule, how do you prepare for it? What do you do? First, know who you're meeting with. That's whether it's going to be just you and the legislator or you, the legislator, and a staffer, know who's going to be there, and then ask about their background, affiliations, family, and what did their last election look like. Know ahead of time, are they in a place where they feel really insecure about winning reelection because they barely won? Or are they in a place where they don't really care about election stuff because they're never opposed? That's a good thing to know, just so that you know what their attitude and background and kind of feeling is going to be going into the meeting. Prioritize the top three issues. You should never, under any circumstances, I don't care what excuse you think you have, you should never be talking about more than three things, ever. If you can't narrow down your list of priorities to three things, you need to redo your list. So for Missourians to abolish the death penalty, we are talking about closing the judicial loophole so that a unanimous jury is the only thing that can sentence you to death. full abolition of the death penalty and preventing expansion of the death penalty. Those are the three things we talk about. And when I say expansion, there have been legislative proposals to include distribution of fentanyl when a death occurs in the first degree murder category, so that would be death penalty eligible, as well as having or assisting an abortion. They want to make that death penalty eligible. And regardless of how you feel about abortion, I think everyone on this call knows that the death penalty is not the answer. So those are our top three issues. You should not be talking about more than that. I know there are more things than that we can talk about, but for these meetings, that's what we're talking about, is those three things. Next, take a friend with you. This does two things. One, it gives you somebody else who is also listening, and afterwards you can compare notes and say, I thought they were really with us. And then your friend can either agree or say, I think they were softer than you think they were. So it's good to have another person there who's also listening to the conversation. It also may make you feel more comfortable, especially if this is a relationship you're developing instead of one that you already have. So those are a couple of reasons to bring someone with you. Make sure you've got multiple copies of any talking points or printed materials. Often legislators will bring staff with them, even if they said they weren't. So make sure you've got a couple of extras. And if you need printed materials, please reach out to us or to Heidi. We can get you simple one-pagers on our issues. We can get you brochures about the organization, all of that. Don't feel like you have to make it up on your own. Reach out to us. Allie's a very good graphic designer. We will get you something that looks nice. And then lastly, make sure when we talked about timeliness of your message, this is one of the things. The first meeting is for making that connection and providing them information. So in your first meeting, it would be very rare, unless you've got a pre-existing relationship, to make an ask of them, other than to say, let's open the door, build this relationship. The second meeting is where you make a firm ask to sponsor a bill, vote for a bill, vote against a bill, whatever. And then the third meeting is for accountability. That's where you say, we've made this connection, I've made this ask. Did you do what you said you would do? Where are we at? So, and subsequent meetings are similarly for making asks and accountability. But know where you're at in that process, and don't feel like you have to go in with a checklist of things you need the legislator to have already done in your very first meeting. This isn't about, when you're doing a lobby day, it's a very quick, focused, this is what we're doing today kind of thing. These in-district meetings are about building a relationship. So it's more like dating than it is lobbying. All right, Connor, I don't know that I actually gave you a preview of this screen. This is a new slide. I made it today. Do you like it?
Oh boy. Oh. I'm assuming you're talking about this current one, the preparing for an
Yeah.
in-district meeting.
Yeah.
I like it. It's very nice. I like the checklist format. But something I do want to kind of emphasize to everybody on the call is, and this was another thing that it took me a minute to kind of get over, is that um, once you actually sit down with the legislator, yes, they won an election. These are now elected officials. They've earned that title, but also remember they are just people. And that is something it took me a long time to really kind of grasp, is that at the same time when you're making these connections, you start to realize it's like you don't need to hold them on a pedestal. It'd be the same thing if you were having a meeting with, your like whoever is on your local sewer management board all the way up to Governor Mike Kehoe. Of course, you give the proper respect, but at the same time, just remember that these are all people who they're not special because they won this election, but you give them the proper, again, give them the proper accolades that they deserve, but don't ever feel intimidated by it. Just always remember that, like, this is a person who, had they not won that election, they'd be out doing the same thing you guys are doing. I always want to emphasize that.
And they may know nothing about the issue.
Yeah.
So the first thing you may want to ask them is, hey, have you ever really thought about this? What's your experience with the criminal legal system? Like
Mhm.
ask questions, especially in that first meeting where you're making a connection, finding commonalities, figuring out what their level of information is. Legislative session, I'm gonna skip through these. It takes a little bit more to get ready as we're going into legislative session. We'll do more trainings like this prior to the lobby day and that sort of thing. This is my favorite slide. This is how a bill becomes law. It's a joke, but anyway. So getting to the next level of advocacy is as easy as making a new friend. And this is a story that I always like to tell. And yes, it was around a lobby day, but I think the principle remains. So that's me several years ago. I know we can all laugh at my hair. Um, when I say several years ago, the little girl at the end of the table is now about to graduate college. So some number of years ago. But her name is Sarah Plassick. Her mother, Jen, is in the foreground. And yes, I have permission to use all of this. And then legislator at the time, Representative Jay Barnes, is the one who's kneeling down there in the foreground. Jay Barnes was trying to work on and Rachel Clarich. I forgot Rachel was on the picture because she was behind the faces. She's a fellow lobbyist that works with Connor and I for one of our other clients. So Jay had this bill that was about EpiPens in restaurants, schools, daycares, and he was really trying to determine who would be liable for EpiPen use and whether you could just have EpiPens as part as regular first aid kits. And the people that wanted free EpiPen use complete with immunity for using EpiPens said, well, kids who don't know they have allergies yet could die if we don't have these, and therefore you have to use these. Well, it turns out Sarah Plassick there, whose mother was there for a completely different issue, lobby day, Sarah has a severe peanut allergy that she did not know about until one day she was at daycare and got very sick and had to be rushed to the hospital because the daycare did not have an EpiPen and she did not have one because she did not know about her peanut allergy at the time. So she had this whole conversation with Representative Barnes, and her mother was there and had the conversation too about why having easy access to EpiPens may save lives, like may be reasonable. They continued to have that conversation after that day repeatedly. And eventually the bill became a law, and Jay was able to get it done in a way that made sense for everybody. And now most restaurants, daycares, and schools have EpiPens on site as part of their general first aid kit, even without having to have a doctor's prescription for them. But now, every time I see Jay or Jay sees her mom or whatever, he's always asking about Sarah. Sarah's going to medical school. And it's just this new relationship that wouldn't have existed had they not taken the time to talk about something other than what they were there for that day. And Jay respects the opinions and conversations that they have more than he might have otherwise because they had this shared connection with one of Jay's kids also having an allergy. So making that friendship, building that relationship, that's how we get beyond the 5-minute conversation where we're rarely going to move anybody's boat. And that's really what we want to encourage you to do. Anything, Connor?
No, that was well said.
I think that's the last one. Yep, that's the last slide. Cool. So I see we've got a ton of comments and stuff in the chat. Heidi, do you mind facilitating or do you want me to read?
I will facilitate the questions. There's actually only one question in the chat. And then there's someone with their hand up. I will announce real quick that MADP does have new brochures that Ali designed. So if you need any of those, you can email us at our info@madpmo.org. Sharon has some in Mid-Missouri, Margaret Phillips has some in St. Louis, and Bob Ronan has some in KC, but I'm happy to stick some in the mail for you if you are going to meet with someone. Allie, I will, and then Allie, if you get ready to, the two questions before we go, Rod Chappell's with us. He's our board chair, and he did post in case no one, I'm not sure how the posting in the chat goes, but Rod thanks everyone for participating, and he cannot wait to see everyone in the months ahead as we talk to our friends in the Capitol. So thanks, Rod.
All right, well, what have we got questions wise?
We have one question for Mary. She did have her hand raised, but I asked her to put the question in the chat. She was asking, do you think a legislator is more likely to listen to a constituent?
Honestly, I think a constituent relationship is just one of the commonalities that you can have with a legislator to help you start building this relationship. I think if you are someone who has another way to connect with them, it does not matter whether you live in their district or not. So think of it as you can be a constituent, or your kids can play soccer together, or both could be true. So just don't feel like if you're not a constituent, you're not going to be listened to, because I think for these types of relationships, particularly, it's more about having something in common outside of the issue you're talking about.
And then we have another question for Mary. As a volunteer, does it make sense to create a business card to leave with legislators, especially if they're not in their district?
Yeah, so when we do lobby days, we encourage people to bring either business cards or to make little postcards that have space to write a note with contact information on them. When we're talking about this issue, it's a little bit different because uh, it's more about making that actual one-on-one connection with the legislator. So it's not as if you're going to be trying to meet them in their office and not being able to and needing to leave some kind of a note. You are going to be making that one-on-one connection, whether it's at an event, by phone. Really, those are the two ways to do it. But it
Awesome.
never hurts.
And then we have another question, or we have Mary who's raising her hand. So I just want to ask Mary, could you put your question either in the chat or in the Q&A function, and we will get to it?
Sharon, to clarify, this may seem obvious, but if I'm not so sure, some things are not always obvious. When you said do the research before you meet with someone and ask, you may ask yourself, right? You're not calling the legislator for an appointment and then asking them, what is your religion? What are your hobbies? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, mostly you would go on their websites. Most campaign websites have some kind of a biography. If they are an incumbent, their House webpage or Senate webpage will have it. And Facebook stalk them, honestly. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what Facebook's for. Connor, you do more of that than I do. Any tips for hunting down people's information?
I mean, pretty much the same thing. A quick Google search tends to bring up a lot of information. They'll be on Twitter, or some people call it X. I don't know anybody who calls it X anymore. But yeah, Facebook. Again, most everybody, they will put, because they want you to know who they are. So they will go out and they will talk, and they will put that on their campaign website. So usually kind of discerning this information is not incredibly difficult. Um, and I mean, and if you want, I mean, if you really want to go the extra step, and if you're not an in-district person, you could eventually kind of figure out, it's like, okay, where do they work? And then be like, all right, if they work at this location, like this place, I know somebody who works there. Let me give them a call and see how they feel about him or him or her or yeah. I mean, but truthfully, a quick Google search will give you almost every bit of relevant information you need.
And
Networking, though, not stalking.
Right.
Yeah,
Networking.
See how many friends you have in common, whether it's
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever.
Yeah.
we had one more person. I think she meant to frame it as a question. So is it important to ask questions before talking?
I think so. I think here's the thing, when you're dealing with legislators, a lot of times they'll be very on guard because especially in this day and age, people are constantly nervous about being recorded without their knowledge. If they don't know where you're coming from, they may be much more standoffish at first. So, my preschool teaching mother used to say, God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. But I think it's good to start with a introduction of yourself. Here's who I am and where I'm coming from, and then start asking questions about who they are and where they're coming from before you get into the full issue details. Again, it's a little bit like a first date.
Yeah.
So add that in a lot of just the abolition itself work, they teach us if you're talking to someone who doesn't support abolition or they're on the fence, ask them their views first because there is legitimate documented arguments for every argument that they give us. So if you're sitting there talking about it from a moral standpoint, like Connor said, but I think it's cheaper to execute someone. Well, then Connor's arguing with me, and that's not my reason for supporting it. And so it goes back to what you all were just conversating about, asking them on that second or third date, so to speak, why that is their view versus assuming it's the same reason that you don't support it is very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it depends on which phase of the conversation you're in. If you're in the introduction phase, you're probably going to do a little more talking to set them at ease and be like, hey, I'm not coming at you. Um, versus when you're at the information gathering phase, where when you start talking about the issue, you start with questions.
I'm not seeing any other questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Sharon and Connor. For those of you, thank you for joining us. Allie is going to post in the chat a link to join our email list. Some of you may have saw this from our email list, but we know that there were other ways to join this webinar without being directly part of the MADP email list. So the link has just been posted for anyone who would like to join our email list. We do not email out an obscene amount of times. If there's a clemency or action, we're emailing out more frequently around the events. Zoom automatically emails the reminders for this. That's not us going in and emailing you all the time. So just don't think it's something that you have several emails from us even daily or weekly in your inbox. It's typically not the case. So please sign up there. There is a live petition on the judicial loophole issue. If you would like to add your name to that, that's our current evergreen petition. And as always, if you want to donate to MADP, you will find that donation link on our website as well. We appreciate all of our monthly donors and everyone else who contributes to us. We have a man who mails us a $5 check every month from Iowa, and he has abolish it outside the envelope and on the subject line. So we just appreciate everyone, thinking of us as they make donations, as you attend the webinar with your time. Time is valuable. Thanks again to Allie, Sharon, and Connor, and to the board members who attended, and all those people who are not my board members who attended. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this and help us stay on target with the talking points as abolition is in reach in Missouri. If you didn't know it, get on the train because it is. We do have the ability. We had the first abolition vote at a committee level, but that was the first abolition vote in Missouri history. And that was thanks to Sharon and Connor, and it was 5-5. We only lost it because someone was getting out of their car and running late. And that was a committee vote, but that was important and that was huge for Missouri. And thanks to Representative Jim Murphy, who's running for Senate, for pushing his legislation. Our legislation is bipartisan. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican issue. And in a state like Missouri, we have Republican support, or we would not have movement with our bills. So thank you all for joining us. I look forward to seeing you all around the state. Thanks, Allie, Sharon, and Connor for spending the evening with us, and everyone have a good evening. Bye.